Something very strange happened today, Kevin. My wife, Trudy, whom I have been married to for 18 years, said to me as we were having dinner. What was it, Mom? Our 13-year-old daughter, Cassie, asked, not letting me answer. I stopped eating and sat down, looking at Trudy with a look of concerned interest on my face. Today at lunch, when we were leaving the restaurant, a young man took a picture of me, Trudy told us. Really? I don't think you can blame him. You're a very beautiful woman and you dress very, I had to think to find the right word because Cassie was sitting at the table with us. Elegantly when you go to the office, and even more so in recent months, I replied casually and went back to my meal. Well, I like to look good at the office, but don't you think it's strange that he just took a picture of me on the street? Not really, Trudy. Think about it. This guy is probably a paparazzi or something, and he thought, wow, a beautiful woman like you, walking around in the middle of the day dressed like that. Well, that means you must be a celebrity or something, I suggested. Oh, don't be silly. Trudy, you have an almost perfect figure for a woman your age. You're always impeccably dressed and made up. Of course, people are going to think you're someone special. We think so, don't we, Cassie? Of course, Mom. You're the most beautiful mother in our school. All my friends envy me for having such a beautiful mother, Cassie chimed in. Oh, you're flattering me, Trudy said, blushing slightly with embarrassment. Nonsense, Trudy. You're a very attractive woman. I'm sure all the men in your office are flirting with you all day long, especially that old man, John Ryan. John Ryan, why did you single him out? Trudy asked, blushing, I thought, to the color of a beet at the mention of Ryan's name, but probably only slightly, compared to how she had been before. Come on, Trudy. Everyone in town knows about that scoundrel. I glanced quickly at Cassie, not wanting to call him a scoundrel in front of her, but sometimes emotions get the better of me. Damn, his reputation precedes him. What reputation? Trudy, Ryan is a womanizer, a wolf. You know that guy has more girlfriends than anyone else in town. Yes, that's true, but how would you know? You don't even know him. You don't have to meet this person in person to know his reputation. Besides, that little jerk went to the same school as me, albeit in a different class. He has a string of romantic conquests, and he's not shy about bragging about them at the pub. You know, if I didn't trust you so completely, I'd be worried about you working at the same company as him. Trudy suddenly fell silent. I sincerely believed that if Cassie hadn't left the TV on in the living room, we would have heard Trudy's brain working. In a way, I had known about John Ryan's reputation for many years, and to be honest, I had some reservations when Trudy took a job at the same company as him 5 years ago. But since they supposedly worked in completely different departments, I calmed down a bit over time. Besides, Trudy was my wife and she loved me, she told me so all the time, so what was there to worry about? But on the other hand, when you have a wife as attractive as Trudy, there's always the possibility that some handsome guy might turn her head. And to be honest, I'm over 40, and although I keep myself in shape, I'm clearly past my prime, no matter what tricks I try to turn back the clock. I thought I was doing everything right. I sent Trudy anonymous bouquets of flowers to her office from time to time, but regularly. I sent her suggestive joke emails and cards, supposedly anonymous, and arranged secret dates, although I think she always knew it was me because I had to hire a babysitter in advance. But you know what I mean. I was playing the role of the silly, loving husband, like a teenager, so that Trudy, or anyone else, would think I wasn't aging as fast as I really was. I won't go into the details of our intimate life, but believe me, it was as regular and energetic as ever. I can assure you of that. But a few weeks before that evening, I got a call at the office from an old school friend whom I hadn't spoken to in years, but who, as I later learned, worked for the same company as Trudy. I never found out how Mark found out where I worked, probably through rumors. Hey, Kevin, buddy, it's Mark. Mark Willoughby, long time no see. God, Mark, where did you come from? I haven't seen you. I don't even remember how many years it's been, Kevin. But I saw you a few times when you picked up Trudy from the office. What? You work at Sangster's with Trudy? Not exactly, Kevin. I'm in a different department in human resources, but I saw you in the parking lot from my office window. Oh, you have nothing better to do than stare at women, I suppose. You could say that. We have some real beauties working for us right now. The thing is, Kevin, your wife is one of them. I don't like the way you said that, Mark. Relax, Kevin. Don't worry. It's probably nothing. But you're an old friend. I just thought I should tell you. How about lunch at Feathers? What are you having? Mark asked when I approached him at the bar. Something better. What's this about, Mark? I asked, perhaps a little sharply. Calm down, Kevin. It's probably nothing. It's just... Damn it. Listen, if I don't tell you, I'll never forgive myself. Let's find a quiet place in the garden where no one can hear us, Mark said, looking around as if he expected someone to be watching us. Stepping out into the sunlight, I followed Mark to a table away from everyone else. Listen, Kevin, as far as I know, she could tell that bastard to go to hell. But I've been watching that asshole for years and I know how he works. What's more, he's very good at what he does. Mark, who the hell are you talking about and what does he do? John Ryan, have you ever dealt with that bastard? Yes, of course. Randy Ryan from school. Yes, that bastard. He's married now and works in our sales department. Yes, I know, but what does he have to do with Trudy? I asked suspiciously. Wait, Kevin, maybe it's nothing. I'm just guessing. Listen, Ryan always thought he was a big shot, you remember? I remember more than I'd like to, Mark. I was a little wary of Trudy working at the same company as him. But I found out he's in sales and Trudy's in purchasing. From what I've heard, they don't even cross paths. You're absolutely right, buddy. They're completely different departments, and there's a pretty strong rivalry between them. But I've seen and heard different things in HR. I've been keeping an eye on Ryan because that little bastard stole my girlfriend once when we were in college, and I haven't been able to stand him since. Anyway, after he got married, he calmed down for a few years, as far as I know, and behaved himself, if you know what I mean. He always made a lot of promises to girls, but I don't know if he ever crossed the line with anyone. At least I can't prove it. And then, 4 or 5 years ago, I noticed he was spending a lot of time in the advertising department. And then he started having lunch with the girls from that department. You know how it is with girls. They get together to go shopping, to a cafe or to a pub. And suddenly John Ryan joins them. It took me a long time to realize that whenever Ryan left with them, there was always one particular woman in the group. It didn't matter where they went. Half the time I didn't even know where they were going. I just saw them leave and come back. But one thing I was sure of. Ryan was always with the group that included that particular woman. Not that I saw anything wrong with that. And what does that prove? Absolutely nothing. And that's my problem. Or as HR manager, I could have done something about it. I would have gladly fired Ryan just for the fun of it. But a few months later, when I was reviewing employee attendance reports, completely by accident, of course, Mark winked at me. I discovered that, by some incredible coincidence, Ryan and this woman have the same days off for dentist appointments, doctor appointments, etc. That's a bit far-fetched, isn't it? Who was this woman? No one you know, Kevin, and she no longer works for the company. She left shortly after the divorce. What's more, these coincidences happened once or twice a month until she left the company. And you think... I don't think anything, Kevin, because I can't prove anything. This woman's father never sued the company or even filed a complaint. I'm just assessing the likelihood. The thing is, about 6 months after this woman left, I noticed that John Ryan suddenly started visiting the customer service department. You know, the office where the girls answer the phones. And yes, he soon started going out to lunch with some of those girls. It took me a little longer to figure out which one he was going on second dates with, because they're a very close-knit group. Anyway, when this woman started going to the doctor after work, I sent out a memo to everyone saying that HR was conducting a survey and asking all employees to provide full details of any doctor visits requiring time off. I presented it as some kind of government statistics questionnaire or something like that. Anyway, they seemed to believe it, and both stopped going to the doctor. But they must have continued doing it somewhere outside of work, because I'm pretty sure it went on for about a year until the woman in question went on maternity leave. Anyway, Ryan returned to the advertising department. Do you think he got that woman pregnant? I have no idea, Kevin. Anyway, she's still with her husband. She didn't come back to the company. She's working somewhere in the sticks now, but that doesn't mean Ryan isn't sleeping with her on the sly. Anyway, I'm sure he hooked up with some other bimbo from the advertising department and slept with her for about a year and a half until she got into an accident. I don't know what happened, but she was badly beaten up. In the end, she left the company too, and I haven't heard anything about her except for a couple of inquiries about her from companies in Bristol. Looks like she moved. Interestingly, John Ryan was mugged around the same time she got into the accident. So, you're assuming... Never mind, Kevin. But what would you do if you were her old man? Fire the bitch? Well, maybe her old man just spanked her and forgave her. Anyway, that's the background. I wanted to tell you that John Ryan has been hanging around the purchasing department for the last few weeks. And if you don't mind, considering that your Trudy is the most beautiful woman in the department, if not the whole company, as an old friend, I thought it would be fair to tell you about the situation. Look, I'm not saying Trudy is going to do anything wrong, but John Ryan is a very handsome man. He's always been eloquent and very patient. I really think it would take a very special woman not to notice him, at least once. I don't know how he does it, but somehow he gets every woman he sets his sights on. I agree. We all thought Gina was in love with you at the time, I said, remembering the girl John Ryan stole from Mark. Yes, it just goes to show you never know what's going on in a woman's mind, even if you've known her for years. Or married her, as I understand it. I'm not implying anything, Kevin, just giving you the background so you can take all the necessary precautions. Thanks, Mark. I trust Trudy with my life, but only a fool looks back. If I notice anything more specific, Kevin, I'll let you know. And by the way, I really hope I'm wrong. But if I'm right, do me a favor and file a formal complaint with the company. Then I'll be happy to fire that bastard and make sure his wife finds out why. It wasn't that I didn't trust Trudy, but I thought it would be wise to take some precautions. After much deliberation, I chose the method that so troubles celebrities these days, the threat of public exposure. An old friend of mine teaches photography at a local technical college. I spoke to him in private, and he assigned some of his best students to take a few candid shots of two specific individuals. Well, those paparazzi scoundrels have to learn their craft somewhere. These weren't supposed to be revealing photos or anything like that, just candid shots of two people going about their normal business, preferably in close proximity to each other. The kind of photos that paparazzi constantly take of the rich and famous. What's more, the students were visible during the shoot, but they swore to keep it a secret why they were doing it. Yes, I had to offer a hefty sum as a prize for the best photos, but I decided it was a small price to pay. When I started to implement my plan, I naturally wondered if it would work. But I decided that if John Ryan was trying to get my Trudy into bed, they'd both have to be crazy to actually commit adultery when they didn't know when the next little brat would jump out of nowhere and take a photo of them looking unattractive. Are you smiling because you like something? This young man appeared out of nowhere and took a picture of me. I felt like I was being followed, Trudy finally said. Oh, don't be so paranoid, Trudy. He's probably just a student taking pictures of the city. They're always here, haven't you noticed? I replied. Yes, I have, but this guy took my picture on purpose. And, as I've told you many times, who can blame him? You're the most beautiful woman in town. What did you expect from him? You think he took my picture just because of my looks. Why else, Trudy? Unless you were doing something illegal and he was a private investigator gathering evidence for your boyfriend's wife. I laughed loudly, as if it were a joke. But I wouldn't. Trudy, I'm joking. I would never say you were capable of that. I lied. I'm sure the guy was just a student who was struck by your natural beauty. Don't worry about it. I wouldn't say Trudy looked convinced, but she didn't bring it up again after that. This time it was a girl. Who? What did she do? I replied, pretending not to know. She took a picture of me when I was leaving the office lobby during my lunch break. I tried to ask her why she did it, but she disappeared into the crowd. It's just a coincidence, Trudy. I don't think so. I'm sure she was waiting for me. You're being paranoid, Trudy. I'm sure they're just students. I see them taking pictures all over town all the time. But they don't single you out and take pictures of you. Trudy, I'm hardly the object of anyone's fantasies, but you always look impeccable. I'm not surprised they want to capture you on film. Consider yourself lucky that some of these young people will probably be photographing the rich and famous in the near future. You can't object to them practicing on you, can you? They were at White Hart today. Who? The guys who were taking pictures. So what? Well, there was a whole crowd of them, taking pictures in the garden. And you? No, not on purpose, not in the pub, but we were sitting in the garden at the time. I know we're in some of the pictures. Who are you talking about, Trudy? Well, the girls from the office. We went to the White Hart for a drink at lunchtime because it was Sandra's birthday. Ah, secret daytime drinking, huh? I replied humorously. Don't be silly, Kevin. You know we go out for a drink on our birthdays. Sometimes we all get together the following Friday evening to celebrate. And you're all going to get drunk this Friday with Sandra? Well, I was going to, but now I don't think I will. Why not? Oh, just one person at the office is annoying me a little. If he's there, I'm not going. I didn't take the bait and said nothing, but to say that this news was music to my ears would be an understatement. I had to assume that someone was John Ryan. But then, cynic that I am, I wondered, what if you've been set up, son? Maybe your loving wife suspects you of having an affair with those students with cameras and is now trying to cover for you, acting very cautiously and cunningly? Good question, right? The next morning, my friend Peter Phillips, a college professor, called me. Kevin, old man, I'd say something's definitely going on here. Yesterday at lunchtime, 4 of my students were at the White Hart. We go there every year and take pictures of everything we see for advertising. The hotel manager gives us complete freedom, and we give him all the photos he needs for brochures and so on. Anyway, there was a crowd of women from Sangster in the garden, celebrating a birthday or something. Your Trudy was with them. Well, one guy from their group started hitting on one of the students. He wanted to know why she was taking pictures of him. It's not hard to guess who it was. Well, he picked the wrong student. Sasha has a sharp tongue, and she told him he was damn lucky. Why should she take pictures of such an old miser? She was assigned to photograph the hotel, and if he happened to be in the garden, that was her problem, not his. What did he say? He couldn't say anything while he was talking to young Sasha, and one of the women from Sangster's group asked another student to take a picture of all the girls together. The young guy gladly agreed. Sasha noticed that 2 of the group, a guy and your wife Trudy, didn't want to be in the picture. They seemed very shy in front of the camera. Thanks, Peter. How are the kids doing with their assignment? Well, we already have about 100 photos. How long do you want this game to go on? Hell if I know, Peter. Do they know they're being photographed? I doubt it. I told the kids not to hide, but not to stand out too much either. I need to go in and see how you're doing. Those students are driving me crazy. Everywhere I go, there's always 1 or 2 of them taking pictures of me, and I'm sure they're singling me out, Trudy said as soon as I walked into the house that evening. Oh, yes. I spoke to Peter Phillips this morning. I called him because you were so worried. It looks like they have a few projects going on. They're doing a photo tour of the city for the council's tourism department, and another group is studying the locals. I bet they took your picture. But I'm not a local. Honey, you're the most beautiful woman in this city, believe me. Are you flattering me? No, it's true, and those young people probably noticed it too. Well, I like to look good. You always look gorgeous, my love. Anyway, there's another group doing advertising. Maybe that's who you saw yesterday at White Hart. Oh, I see. See, just a coincidence. Peter said he'd look through them all and send you copies of the ones you're in if you want. What? No, don't bother. I was just joking, Kevin. Tell Peter not to bother. Okay, sweetheart. I just thought you might be interested in seeing them, that's all. Yeah, right. Double bluff or what? Why doesn't Trudy want me to see them? Maybe because she's with John Ryan in most of them and she doesn't want me to notice? Maybe there was some truth in Mark's initial assessment. Maybe I was too late. Right after lunch on Friday, Trudy called me at the office. Kevin, I've decided to go out with Sandra and the girls to celebrate her birthday tonight. Is that okay with you? I was against it, but I couldn't tell Trudy that, could I? No, honey, just don't overdo it with the drinking. Do you want me to pick you up later? Well, that would be better than waiting for a taxi. But Kevin, if we go to the club, we probably won't want to come home until morning. You don't want to be up until 2 in the morning. What else am I supposed to do, baby? Lie in bed and worry. The world is so dangerous. Oh, don't be silly. There are always cops and bouncers around the club. At this time of night, there are even 2 security guards at the taxi stand. I'll be fine. Go to bed. See you in the morning. All right. If you insist, honey, I'll see you when you get home, and don't do anything your grandmother wouldn't like. You don't know my grandmother, do you, Kevin? No, but I hear your mother was quite a girl in her day, so behave yourself. Like I wouldn't. See you later, sweetie. Yeah, I was upset, but there was nothing I could do. All I could do was hope that Peter's students with cameras would tell me what happened that night, and maybe their presence would keep things from getting out of hand. I was sure they would be in town because the cash prize was too big for them to pass up. And at the club, well, 2 of Peter's guys worked there every Friday and Saturday night. They roamed around the club taking pictures of the patrons, and the photos could be purchased for exorbitant prices. Although that wasn't the real reason they were there, and the club didn't have a photo lab for them. They took much better pictures of the club's patrons than the surveillance cameras, and anyone who ended up on the blacklist. To my surprise, around 9:30, I heard the front door open and Trudy walk into the living room. You're early, dear. I hope everything's okay? I asked. No, everything's fine. I just didn't like it and decided to come home to my husband so he wouldn't feel lonely. That's very sweet of you, but I hope it doesn't mean I have to cut short my evenings with my friends. Have I ever stopped you from having fun? No, but I don't want to think you're cutting your evening short for me. To be honest, there was one girl there who was annoying me, so I decided to come home early. Now we're getting to the heart of the matter. Who was she? One of those girls you had a falling out with at the office? Oh, no one important. I'll deal with it myself. Is Cassie in bed yet? Yes, she's fast asleep. Maybe we should go to bed too. Sounds good, but I wouldn't call it early. Come on, silly. You know what I want. Maybe you should go out drinking with the girls more often. I can assure you that it was a long night. I was curious to find out what had happened, but unfortunately, Trudy kept it a secret. On Monday morning around 11, Mark Willoughby called me. Hey, Kev, I just did something really nice. I got John Ryan fired. Really? Why? What did he do? God, she didn't tell you. I thought Trudy had already told you. No, she didn't say a word. Well, would you believe it, sexual harassment of a colleague? And since she didn't tell you, I'll give you one guess who filed the complaint. Trudy? Yes, she set him up nicely, gathered evidence, several witnesses, and everything else. He won't get away with this. That's strange. I wonder why she didn't tell me about it. She didn't? No. Trudy went out with the girls from the office on Friday, but she came home early and said someone had been bothering her. But she didn't say who. Wow, she didn't tell you about Friday night at the club? No, why? Did something happen? Well, judging by this statement I have here. On Friday night, John Ryan invited himself to a bachelorette party. One of the girls from the office had a birthday or something. Anyway, as I suspected, he'd been telling Trudy his old sad story for weeks. She tried to be nice, but he wouldn't take no for an answer. I think he probably took Trudy's politeness as an invitation. Anyway, on Friday night he crossed the line, and your Trudy knocked him out at the Starlight Club. Are you kidding? No, I have a video from the club's security camera showing Ryan getting too close to her on the dance floor. What did he do? I'm not entirely sure. It was pretty crowded on the dance floor, but Trudy and Sandra said they were kissing. I guess that saved Trudy from having to say that the bastard tried to grope her. Apparently, Trudy punched him in the face first, then kicked him in the groin. Security pulled her off him, otherwise she could have seriously injured him. Oh my God, what's going to happen now? Ryan was suspended from work this morning, and he'll be called in to see management after lunch. I don't think Ryan will be coming to work for a week. Senior management is very sensitive about sexual harassment in the workplace. But if it had happened in a nightclub? Yes, but Ryan was trying to flirt with Trudy at the office. I have a whole collection of explicit letters he wrote to her. And remember, he's a supervisor in the sales department, which means he's technically Trudy's boss, so he'll definitely be fired. It was an interesting turn of events, but I couldn't understand why Trudy hadn't told me anything about the situation. She should have confided in me. I decided that I would definitely talk to her about it soon. I didn't think it would happen that evening because we were going out to dinner with a group of friends. Cassie came along too because we had kids around the same age. Nothing formal, just dinner at one of the local pubs. We usually did this every 2 or 3 weeks. But well, sometimes life is like that, and there's nothing we can do about it. After dinner, we went for coffee and so on in the garden, and the kids went to play on the swings and other attractions. We were sitting in the garden for no more than a couple of minutes when one of the wives turned to Trudy. So, True, how long have you been boxing? I think everyone turned and looked at this woman, wondering what she was talking about. Oh, I heard at the office today that True knocked out some guy at the Starlight Bar on Friday night. Rumor has it with one punch. Come on, True, tell us what happened. This question was followed by a pause that seemed significant to me. True opened and closed her mouth as if she wanted to say something, but she looked at everyone except me, as if asking someone else to answer for her. Well, Kevin, how did yesterday's round go? Did you get as wet as we did? One of the guys suddenly asked me, awkwardly trying to change the subject. It was his wife's question, and she suddenly looked as embarrassed as Trudy. I can't help myself. I'm a gentleman by nature, so since Trudy clearly didn't want to answer, I struck up a conversation with the guy about yesterday's downpour on the golf course. He played on a different course, but on Sundays we usually started playing at about the same time. The short drive home from the pub was completely silent. Cassie quickly picked up on the tension hanging in the car like a knife, so she also remained silent and, as soon as we entered the house, immediately disappeared into her room. Well? I asked as soon as we were alone. Well? Trudy replied cautiously. Trudy, what the hell is going on? I knew something was wrong when you came home early last Friday. First you didn't want to go out, then you decided to go, and then you came back without even stopping by the club. Now Gloria says you hit some guy at the club. Please explain. Trudy went into the kitchen and sat down at the table. I took that as an invitation to sit across from her. Kevin, I did some incredibly naive things, and now they've come back to haunt me, she finally said, staring at the table for a long time. God, what is she going to confess? I asked myself. Damn, after everything I've said in the past about unfaithful partners, now I'm going to have to live up to my words? Thoughts raced through my head. You know, it's amazing how quickly the brain can work through all kinds of scenarios. I imagined Trudy and I getting divorced and me taking a very unhappy Cassie away to another place. Then the picture quickly changed, and I was at home with Cassie and Trudy, and some handsome guy was taking my Trudy away to another place. What's more, Cassie even seemed happy to see this guy. To be honest, even after my suspicions, I was terrified and didn't want to hear what Trudy had to say. Her words could mean that the comfortable, happy life I had grown so accustomed to could be destroyed. About a year ago, I started receiving very flattering letters at work. Suddenly, I realized that Trudy had started talking again. There was nothing new in them. You told me yourself that I'm beautiful. And to be honest, a lot of guys send me slightly suggestive letters and notes. It's just a little entertainment to help break up the monotony of work. However, these letters were a little different from the joke letters from guys or from you. First of all, I had no idea who they were from. The address was on Hotmail, so they could have been from anyone, even you. You know, for a while I really thought they were from you because they were so, I don't know, affectionate. Anyway, like a complete idiot, I replied to one of them asking who he was. But he didn't reply. He just sent a few more letters complimenting my appearance and what I was wearing that day. I just replied briefly, thanking him for the compliments, and then I thought they were from you. He used the same language you use when you compliment me. I never wrote you letters under a fake name, Trudy. What name did he use? Your biggest fan in the world. God, that's a long phrase. The same phrase you used in that big Valentine's Day card you sent to my office last year when you were away. Remember with the roses? Oh, damn, yes. It seems like my secret admirer saw that card somewhere in the office, but the thing is, almost everyone knew about it. The girls were shocked by such extravagance. In the end, I realized it wasn't you having fun, but then I got it into my head that I would find him. So I kept responding to his letters, thinking that eventually he would slip up. Why didn't you tell me about these letters? Yeah, how could I? Hi, sweetie. I've been writing to this guy thinking it was you, but it turns out it wasn't, especially after what was written in some of the letters. I think it's only fair to admit to readers now that for many years, I had a habit of sending Trudy racy letters at work, especially when I was away on business. And I should probably add that by racy, I mean really racy, with detailed descriptions of what would happen when I got back. Enough. Oh, what was that? Please don't ask, just remember that I thought it was you having fun again. Oh, was it that bad? And everything else? Until I realized it wasn't you. I swear I've been very chaste since then. I just wanted to find out who he was. Do you know now? Yes, on Friday night I practiced my left hook on him. I thought you said you hit him with an uppercut. Is there a difference? Listen, I just hit that bastard as hard as I could. Hey, wait. What do you know about Friday night? Mark Willoughby and I went to school together, Trudy. He called me this morning. Oh, so you know everything. No, I don't know what connection there is between those letters and what happened on Friday night, except that John Ryan is going to get fired because of you. Well, as I said, these letters have been coming for a year. Sometimes he wrote quite revealing things, but I tried not to pay attention when I realized it wasn't you sending them. I really wanted to find out who was writing them and how they knew so much about me and us. It was their knowledge of our personal moments, etc., that made me think it was you at first. But then I did something even more stupid. Oh no, what is Trudy going to confess now? I thought. To be honest, there were also some pretty explicit letters circulating in my office, and I would have been a complete hypocrite if I hadn't noticed the ones Trudy confessed to. I also understood her curiosity about who was sending them. I had been in a similar situation myself. But I knew that it was usually the she-wolves of the company who played such games. I really didn't draw any parallels between these letters when John Ryan started poking his nose into our office every other day. He told us a bunch of nonsense about the infamous feud between the sales and purchasing departments. He claimed he wanted to resolve the conflict. In fact, he did calm things down considerably. You know, the sales department always complained that we bought too much, but we girls couldn't do much about it. Almost everything depends on the negotiators. Anyway, he started coming in almost every day, and it took me a while to realize that he was spending quite a bit of time at my desk talking to me. One of the other girls noticed, and then everyone said that John, well, they said he was in love with me. I see. And what did you do? You didn't tell me about that. Kevin, I know it was a long time ago, but do you remember the last time I told you someone was trying to flirt with me? Come on, we were young and we hadn't been married that long. And we had to wander the streets of Benidorm at 11 o'clock at night looking for another hotel. Well, I didn't mean to hit him that hard. But he turned out to be the son of the hotel owner, right? So we got kicked out. Yeah, well, Trudy, but a man's gotta do what he's gotta do. Damn, who said that, John Wayne? I said, trying to smooth things over. I don't know, and I don't care, but I didn't want to see my husband in court and possibly lose my job just because John Ryan decided he had a chance. I knew I could handle him. Yeah, I figured as much from what happened on Friday night. I'll get back to that. That stupid ass gave away the secret on the dance floor and I just overreacted. What did he say? Hold on, Kevin. Let's take this one step at a time if we can. As soon as I realized John was trying to pull the old trick, I was polite and turned him down in no uncertain terms. But he responded even more insistently, and then one of the girls told me that she thought he had forced a girl from the advertising department to sleep with him. I thought, okay, buddy, if you're going to play dirty, I'll beat you at your own game. But I needed that jerk to propose to me in the office, and I needed proof. And what did you do? Well, remember that little voice recorder you thought you lost? Yeah, I bought a new one. Well, you didn't lose it, I borrowed it, but I couldn't tell you why, for obvious reasons. You left it in your desk drawer. I thought it was just a toy and you hardly ever used it. But after a couple of days, you noticed it was gone. Well, I like to play with my toys. Yeah, right. I spent weeks trying to catch that bastard and record him making some kind of indecent proposal to me. But then, wait a minute. You said Mark was an old friend of yours, and you sometimes play golf with Peter Phillips. Those damn students with cameras were all yours, weren't they? I was just making sure they didn't steal any more of my property, I was forced to admit. I should have your head, but it's nice to know you care. You do realize that John Ryan thought his wife was behind this, right? It completely ruined my chances of catching him in the office. He became almost paranoid. So what happened on Friday night? Raspberries. Sorry? Well, remember a couple of years ago when you went away for 2 weeks and I came to visit you for the weekend? Yeah, I think I remember. Which one? Trudy sighed as if to say that that weekend should have been etched in my memory forever. The weekend you went out for strawberries and cream and found only fresh raspberries. Oh yeah, well, they weren't as romantic as strawberries, but they were very fresh. And after that, you mentioned raspberries in your letters for a long time when you were leaving and I was coming to visit for the weekend. I'm not quite sure what you're getting at, Trudy. Until Friday night, Kevin. John Ryan showed up unexpectedly and had a few too many. He asked me to dance, but on the dance floor that bastard said he'd seen raspberries in a store and that we could sneak out and have some fun. Why did you beat him up? I thought you were going to record him. Kevin, we usually eat strawberries with cream. Ryan could only have found out that you replaced the strawberries with raspberries that evening if he read our private emails. When I realized that, I got very angry and beat the bastard up. From what Mark told me this afternoon, I learned that John Ryan's laptop had a list of almost all the company employees and their email passwords. That bastard read all the emails, especially mine. Oh yeah, Mark and the computer guy invited me to watch them delete all the emails John Ryan had saved on his computer this afternoon. Oh, some of the ones I wrote to you were pretty accurate. Don't tell me I was blushing like a crab the whole time. I don't know if that computer guy read the emails I sent to you or Ryan when I thought you were cheating on him. Anyway, he ran some special program and assured me that they can't be recovered. Unfortunately, they have to keep the letters Ryan sent me and my replies in case they're needed as evidence. I don't know how long I sat there going over all the information Trudy had given me in my head. To be honest, maybe I was thinking about where I could get some fresh strawberries at such a late hour. Life goes on. What led to the cancellation of my engagement can only be described as a dramatic event. My fiancée, whom I will call Julia, and I had planned to get married last weekend, after 3 years of dating and 5 years of knowing each other. I thought she was the one, and our relationship seemed strong. At least I thought so. 2 weekends before the wedding, Julia and 7 of her friends went to Miami for a bachelorette party. I had no concerns. We had a deep trust between us. I expected a typical bachelorette party with drinking, clubs, and maybe a stripper. I even drove her to the airport and wished her a good time. While she was away, I was busy with friends, planning the wedding, and trying on tuxedos. Julia texted me about how much fun she was having and how much she missed me. When she returned, Julia was happy but tired, and she told me about her great weekend. Everything changed on Wednesday evening, 3 days before our wedding, when I received a disturbing message from an unknown person on my phone. The sender wrote that I needed to see what Julia had been doing at her bachelorette party and that she wasn't who I thought she was. A video was attached to the message. At first I thought it was spam, but for some strange reason I watched it. What I saw that evening devastated me. Julia was in a hotel room with 2 men doing things that I couldn't interpret in any other way. She seemed fully conscious. She looked at the camera and said with a laugh, "What happens in Miami stays in Miami, right?" That 3-minute, 42-second video shattered the image of our future that I had built in my mind. Stunned, but not ready for confrontation, I decided not to react. I needed to think about what I had seen, and I spent the next night in the guest bedroom pretending to be sick. The next morning, while she was at her dress fitting, I showed the video to my best man, Tony. Seeing his reaction, I had no more doubts. I decided I couldn't go through with the wedding. While Julia was with her mother, I gathered a few essentials and left her a note. "I know what happened in Miami. The wedding is off," I wrote, and slipped the note in with her keys and her engagement ring. I moved in on Tony's couch for a while and turned off my phone to wait out the storm. On our wedding day, Saturday morning, when I turned on my phone, I found 47 missed calls and over 60 messages from Julia, her family, and our mutual friends. They ranged from "I'm worried about you" to "You're such a jerk, please come back." My parents, who were very upset about my departure, were baffled when they were told what had happened. I sent a mass message to all the wedding guests apologizing and canceling the wedding due to unforeseen circumstances. I also wrote Julia a private message. "We have nothing to talk about. It's over." A week passed. I found an apartment and started sorting out our affairs. Even after I blocked Julia on several social networks, she tries to send her messages and says it was a drunken mistake under pressure from friends. But I know what I saw. She knew what she was doing. Julia's cousin, who wasn't at the bachelorette party, contacted me, worried about Julia and begging me to at least talk to her. I refused, saying I couldn't stand to see them together. The thought of saying vows of loyalty and trust when she had already broken those basic principles was unbearable to me. Some might say I couldn't have found a worse way to leave this world, but what could be worse than betrayal? First she went to church, then she was late for our date. The girl I loved had deceived me so deeply right before our wedding that I thought I would die from the pain and humiliation. 2 weeks later, I received a completely different explanation. I found out who sent me the video. A friend of one of the guys who was with Julia. She did some digging on social media and found out that he had bragged about the incident and sent me the video anonymously. Meanwhile, Julia continues to try to contact me and even came to my new apartment once in tears, begging me to give her a chance to explain. I let her in, not wanting any more public scenes. Her explanation was too typical. She was drunk, there were no feelings involved, and it meant nothing. But as she continued, new details emerged. Julia told me that her friends had encouraged her to have a casual fling, and that these guys weren't strangers to her. They had spent the weekend together, having fun. Julia's confessions revealed a series of flirtations and deliberate decisions that led to actions that were anything but improvised. The most upsetting part was that she discovered that some of her friends had not only approved of her actions, but had also filmed everything. These were people I considered friends. They were among those who stood beside us at our wedding. I asked her about it, and she replied that it was normal to have one last fling before the wedding. At that point, I couldn't take it anymore and told them that if cheating on someone you love is okay, then God help us. Julia's intense feelings are tearing her apart even more, and now I am cruel and unyielding. Or, if I loved her, I would understand that she made a mistake and we could fix things. I replied that if she really loved me, she wouldn't have cheated. She left, but not without telling me that I would regret throwing away everything we had built because of one mistake. After that, Julia started playing the victim, saying that I didn't give her a chance to tell her side of the story. Some mutual friends also believed her version, which further complicated the situation. Now there is a financial battle going on, including Julia demanding reimbursement for the wedding expenses, which never took place because of her infidelity. I spoke with a lawyer about our joint finances, which amounted to about $31,000 for the wedding and the house we planned to buy. I left with half of that amount, but Julia says I stole it. According to the lawyer, I am in the right, but the situation is very awkward. This whole process has affected me deeply, and I am angry and sad. I am going to therapy, which is helping. But then memories of that video come back, and with them, nausea and pain. Although I really want to post the video online and make it public to prove I was right, I will not resort to such childish revenge. Instead, I'm working on self-help, reaching out to friends who love and support me, and putting my recovery first. As I go through this difficult period, I'm focusing on making sure Julia respects my request not to contact me, and I don't want to find out how she's doing from mutual friends. The pain will never go away completely, but I learned some terrible things about her character before I wasted my time marrying her. A month has passed, and everything has changed. Julia had a nervous breakdown and ended up in the hospital due to what she now calls severe depression and anxiety. Her relatives blame me for causing her to suffer because of my unwillingness to reconcile. As much as I sympathize with her, I will not take responsibility for her actions. Unbeknownst to him, one of the two guys Julia was seeing was married, and his wife found out and filed for divorce. In a rage, she contacted me, and we spent nearly 2 hours discussing our infidelities. We are bound by a shared suffering, and we agreed to meet for coffee sometime to simply support each other. Her financial problems are getting worse, and her father is coming to my work and insisting that I pay for the wedding. This has led to negative press coverage, and I've had to seek legal advice. My social life has been just as chaotic. Julia's friends started a campaign to discredit me, portraying me as a villain who abandoned his fiancée because of one mistake, and the whole story is full of things my ex didn't admit to. Some friends have sided with Julia or are trying to beg me for forgiveness, but I can't compromise my integrity. During this chaotic time, I've focused on self-improvement. Therapy is helping me heal, and I'm rebuilding relationships with old friends. I also went on a solo trip to Colorado to clear my head and reflect on this stage of my life. As I sort through Julia's belongings in our shared apartment, I think back on the life we built together over the past 5 years. The good and bad memories weigh heavily on my heart and add another blow to the painful truth that the person I loved and trusted may not have existed. One of my friends said that in a way I'm lucky because, in his opinion, if Julia was able to betray my trust before we got married, she would have done the same after. I know he's probably right, but that doesn't make me feel any better. I feel so damn stupid for not noticing the signs that I can see now in hindsight, all the red flags I chose to ignore. I've tried to think of any signs that Julia could have been so deceitful, but nothing comes to mind. She seemed just as interested in our future as I was. People often ask me if I regret not telling her everything to her face before I left. No, I don't. After the announcement, a few days later, I was stunned and unable to express my feelings. If I had tried to do so at that moment, there's no telling how I would have reacted, but I probably would have done something I would have regretted. Leaving allowed me to get the distance I needed to assess the situation more clearly. For now, I'm just taking it one day at a time. Some days are easy, some days are hard. There are days when I wake up and forget about my heartbreak for a moment, but then it all comes back and hurts me again. However, it is gradually getting easier. 3 months have passed, and I hadn't planned on writing an update, but yesterday's news prompted me to do so. My meetings with Valerie, the wife of one of the men who dated Julie, have become regular. A connection has developed between us, although it is based more on shared traumatic experiences than romantic interest. So we have decided to keep our relationship platonic for now, while we both work through our betrayals. And as if that weren't enough, last week Julie came to me pregnant with a child she said was mine. She also said she was about 4 months along, which coincided with the date of her bachelorette party. My first reaction was denial. I thought it might be someone from Miami. She insisted that we sleep together the night before she left, although I honestly don't remember it. But the timing does match. I told her I would demand a paternity test as soon as it was medically possible. She got very angry and called me heartless, asking who the father of her child was. I stood my ground. I'm not going to jump to conclusions without proof, knowing about her past dishonesty. This discovery shook me again, bringing back emotions I thought I had lost. Not being able to have a child with Julia and be tied to her for the rest of my life. I had always wanted to be a father, but I never thought it would happen, especially with someone I didn't trust. But if she, my ex, later finds out that the child is really mine, I want to be a part of his life. I don't want my child to live wondering why his father abandoned him. But the thought of raising a child with someone who betrayed me so cruelly scares me. Julia seems to think that her pregnancy changes everything, that it could be a bridge to reconciliation. She even said that we should try again for the sake of the child, but I said no. This will be done regardless of the results of the paternity test. This has triggered another wave of harassment from her family, who are already calling me a deadbeat, even before the baby is born. They seem to forget that I am willing to take responsibility if the child is mine, but I just want to take the test so I know whether I have to take responsibility. On the other hand, the issues of payment and money have now been resolved. We were able to come to a fairly amicable agreement that isn't ideal for either of us, but it has allowed us both to close this chapter. I paid more than I had hoped for some of the wedding expenses, but significantly less than Julia had initially requested. I lost the house, but it all worked out because I found a new apartment that I like better than the one we were going to buy. The social upheaval continues, with Julia's friends still telling their version of events. But now, fewer and fewer people seem to believe it. The truth always comes out. Some mutual friends who initially supported her have now contacted us to apologize after hearing the whole story from other people who were at the bachelorette party. Not everyone in the group agreed with what happened, and many members are now publicly expressing their disagreement. One of the bridesmaids, Lexi, even called to apologize and admitted that she was the one who took the video. We regret how we supported Julia. Lexi admitted that Julia had used cocaine that weekend, which she had never mentioned, and admitted that things got out of hand. This doesn't excuse Julia's behavior, but it does add another layer to the story. Lexi also confirmed my suspicion that Tess had been unfaithful in the past. Specifically, she had an affair 2 years ago with a coworker that her friends helped her cover up. I was glad to hear this, even though I was devastated and no longer had any doubts about my decision to break up with her. As for my health, I feel much better. Therapy is helping, and my trip to Colorado alone gave me the clarity I so desperately needed. I'm working hard and keeping busy with hobbies, even going on casual dates, though I'm not ready for anything serious yet. The hardest part right now is the uncertainty about the pregnancy. If the baby is mine, it will change my life dramatically. If not, I will breathe a sigh of relief, but with the deepest sympathy for the child caught up in such a storm. For now, I'm focused on the paternity test and continuing the healing process. 6 months later, I received the results of the paternity test. The child is not mine. I can't say I was surprised, although the reaction was more intense. It was mostly a feeling of relief, but also a sense of loss for a future that was never meant to be mine. I had been preparing myself emotionally for fatherhood, although I was terrified by the thought of raising a child with Julia. Julia's reaction was extreme. She was hysterical when she heard the news. She confessed to me through tears that she wanted the baby to be mine and that it would somehow bring us back together. She admitted that she had suspected that one of the guys from Miami might be the father, but refused to believe it because it was too painful to face reality. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Until I remembered the months of lies, manipulation, and harassment from her and her family that had forced me to take responsibility for a child that wasn't mine. When I asked her about Lexi's confession that she had cheated on me in the past, she denied everything at first, but eventually admitted that 2 years ago, after a company party, she had a one-night stand with a colleague. She claimed it didn't count because it was a drunken mistake, purely physical. I asked her if there had been other instances, and after some arguing, she told me about only one other, which I found out about a year into our relationship. Another secret she had been hiding from me. So the woman I thought I would spend the rest of my life with had cheated on me with at least 3 men, and who knows how many more, not to mention what even her friends didn't know about. Strangely enough, if she had been honest with me, we could have overcome the previous events. But the double life and the huge betrayal right before our wedding were too much to forgive. All the trust between us was gone. Julia, who is the child's biological mother, got involved with 2 men when she realized she was pregnant in Miami. One of them blocked her, and the other, who is married, is in the process of getting a divorce and doesn't want to hear anything about the child. Valerie, his soon-to-be ex-wife, told me part of this story. It seems he wants to claim that it was consensual, but not his idea, and that he was too drunk to use protection properly. His excuses don't convince anyone. Now Julia has to come to terms with the idea that she will be a single mother with 2 fathers who refuse to have anything to do with the child. Her family, who once condemned me, is now struggling to help her cope with this tragedy. Her father, who cornered me at work and demanded that I take responsibility, now won't look me in the eye when we cross paths. For Julia, this has had social consequences. When the whole story came out, many of her friends turned their backs on her. Her professional life has also suffered. She took a long leave of absence due to mental health issues and complications with her pregnancy. I've heard that she was also passed over for a promotion she had been promised. And if you think I feel any satisfaction from any of this, you're wrong. On the contrary, I feel sad. Sad about the years I spent with someone who could so easily break my trust, about the future we imagined but will never have, and about the child who will be born into such difficult circumstances. But in this sadness, I feel relief. Thank God I found out what Julia was really like before I married her, and I'm glad there's no child between us to bind us together. I'm so glad I can close this chapter of my life and move on without her shadow hanging over me. As for me, life is good. GJ. I have a new apartment that feels like home, a great job, and I even got a promotion last month. I've reconnected with old friends and made new ones, and I've even started dating a woman named Melissa. It's too early to talk about anything serious, but the relationship looks promising. She knows where I'm coming from and is patient with my trust issues, which I'm still working on. The financial disputes have been settled. Although the lawyer's bills were substantial, peace of mind is priceless. Last week, Julia picked up the last of her things from storage, ending our logistical relationship. Valerie and I stay in touch, occasionally meet up, and remain sincere friends thanks to our shared experience. She is currently dating someone new and seems happy. We always laugh about how we should thank our exes for inadvertently bringing us together. This is probably the last time I'll update this story. As we know, it ended. Julia got what she deserved and now has to pay for it. I've really come to terms with what happened and am trying to build a new life. In a way, I'm glad for that anonymous text with the link to the video. If it weren't for that, I would have married Julia and inevitably discovered what a shameless slut she was, and I might have become the father of another man's child. Instead, I am now free and can find happiness with someone who deserves my trust. To those facing similar difficulties, I want to say, everything will be okay. The pain won't go away, but it will become less acute. Life goes on, and sometimes the worst betrayal becomes the beginning of an amazing new journey. And now, a year later, I feel compelled to share some more news. Life really has become wonderful. I feel very good. The promotion at work came with a significant pay raise, which I spent on travel, something I had always wanted to do but never did when I was with Julia. I visited Japan, Portugal, and spent a month working remotely from Argentina. Each trip was so cleansing that I couldn't even imagine it. Melissa and I, on the other hand, immediately started living life to the fullest. Well, that wasn't my intention, but life has a strange way of working things out. She is everything Julia wasn't: honest, direct, supportive, but not coddling. We've been together for 8 months now, and I've never felt so confident in a relationship. She knows everything about my history and is patient with my trust issues. I managed to go several months without seeing Julia, as I only received objective reports of her successes from mutual friends who ignored my request not to tell me any news. I knew she had given birth to a boy and was struggling with single motherhood, but that she had a lot of support from her parents. Then I learned that one of the men from Miami had finally agreed to take a paternity test, and when paternity was confirmed, he categorically refused, to have anything to do with the child except to pay child support as ordered by the court. It seemed that our paths would never cross again, but last week, on a whim, I walked into a coffee shop downtown and saw Julia. At first, I hardly recognized her. She had changed so much. She had lost weight, looked tired, and her hair was cut short. The vibrant woman I had loved so much seemed to have been replaced by someone who was tired of life. She was alone, without a child. When she saw me, we looked into each other's eyes for a moment, and she said, "Can we talk?" Against my better judgment, I agreed to sit with her for 5 minutes. She looked me in the eyes and said, "I'm sorry. Not just for what I did, but for how I acted afterward. You deserve better. I was selfish and stupid and destroyed everything I had." It wasn't the apology I had expected, but it seemed sincere. Julia didn't rush to make excuses or blame others. She simply took responsibility. She told me about her current life, the challenges she faces as a single mother, the judgment from those who knew about her past, and the friends and respect she had lost. She said her parents were selling their house to move closer and help with the child. Her career was on the rise, but in her words, it's been hard. I'm also seeing a therapist to break the habit of destroying my own happiness. What touched me most about her confession was that she regretted hurting someone who truly loved her. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," she said, "but I want you to know that I regret what I did every day." I didn't say much about it. There was nothing to say. I had long since stopped feeling angry. I had moved on to indifference and a slight sadness about what might have been. I thanked her for her apology and wished her well with her son. As I got up to leave, she asked me one last question. "Are you happy?" I thought about Melissa, about my work, about traveling, about my friends, and about the life I had built after the breakup. "Yes," I replied. "I'm happy." She nodded and smiled, though there was sadness in her smile. "Good. You deserve it." That brief conversation was more therapeutic than all my psychotherapy sessions combined. I didn't need her apology, but seeing her hear herself and acknowledge the reality of what she had done and how it had affected her quickly made up for it. With the last weight lifted off my shoulders, I walked out of the cafe and already felt relieved. No anger, no resentment, not even pity. Just a stoic understanding that people make choices that irreversibly affect the course of their lives, and the best you can do is adapt and move on. The other day, I was sitting with Melissa on the balcony watching the sunset, and I realized one thing. I am grateful for what happened. Not because Julia deserved karmic retribution, and not because I rejoice in her suffering, but because this painful episode freed me and allowed me to experience true happiness. She unwittingly freed me by trying to destroy me. And that, ladies, is the final chapter of The Story I Never Thought I'd Be In. Thank you to everyone who followed us and supported us. To those who are going through the same pain, hang in there, let the pain go, and sometimes what awaits you on the other side is much better than what you lost. Life goes on, and from time to time it gets better than you could have imagined.